An informed voter is an empowered voter. And in a country as diverse and complex as Nigeria, voter education plays a critical role in deepening democratic participation. Beyond simply knowing how to vote, citizens need to understand the value of their votes, the structure of the electoral system, and the rights and responsibilities within it. Yet gaps in civic awareness, especially at the grassroots, continue to undermine participation, fuel disinformation, and weaken sometimes accountability. Tonight, the conversation focuses on how effective voter education, particularly at the community level, can reshape Nigeria's democratic journey from increasing turnout and reducing invalid voter to building and increasing trust in the process and holding political actors to account. As the 2027 elections draw near, the question is no longer whether voter education matters, but how to make it reach, resonate, and truly empower those at the heart of the democracy, that is the people. I am Ezenwawagu. Welcome to Electoral Reform Half Hour on NTA News 24 Abuja. This program is brought to you by the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Victoria Eta Messi is the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. She plays a key role in shaping and overseeing the Commission's public communication strategies, voter education campaign, and civic engagement initiatives across Nigeria. With years of experience in electoral administration, she is a leading voice in promoting voter awareness and participation. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm seeing that you're a bit more relaxed. It doesn't look like the action has started in INEC. I know the political environment, which talks about registration of new parties and all of that. I'm happy to see you really calm and relaxed this week.
I should be calm. We're doing the needful backstage, just in preparation for the race once the whistle is blown.
So, I know that federal government recently announced plans to build a new national headquarters. And for INEC, from your perspective, how will this, development help impact the Commission's operational efficiency, coordination, and across departments and overall? And then the rumor mill also is rife with, how the FCT is the one building and all of that. How has all of this come? By the way, congratulations on that. A sword turning. Yes, it was really impressive. We were there, and many congratulations to the commission. I think that's a bold initiative. What does it mean for you?
Indeed, congratulations to Nigerians as well. So, like the Honorable Chairman of the Commission said during the flag off, during his remark, that this was a journey that began over 10 years ago. The Commission has been battling with office issues, office space, and he talked about this isn't the first time that government is responsible or is building or coming to the aid of the Commission. Development of infrastructure in the FCT is a responsibility of the FCDA. So even before the day of the flag off, the social media went agog and all sorts of things were put out there, most likely out of ignorance. But like the Honorable Chairman said, this was a journey that started 10 years ago. There were so many options on the table, but up till that went on, opportunities came and went until last year when this particular option was put on the table. And fortunately, the Federal Executive Council approved that structure be built, an annex. We're not abandoning the existing structure. It's an annex. And the chairman also called our attention to the fact that the existing structure is overstretched. When it was built, there were 8 national commissioners. Now you have a 13-member commission. You had 10 departments and directorates. Now we have 22. We had about 500 staff. Now we have over 1,000. So it's really overstretched.
At the headquarters.
Yes, at the headquarters. And that informed the commission seeking alternative accommodation for some departments. For instance, we are not at the head office. We're in one of the annexes of the head office. So we have 2 offices in Wuse too. So it doesn't really help for proper interdepartmental functionality, yeah. I think, yes. So, and again, I think the existing structure is not well suited for today's issues and problems and challenges. So with this, with the flag off of the annex that would be able to, that would address the problem on ground, the chairman again reiterated the fact that this is going to address today's issues. IT infrastructure would be taken into consideration, space, an auditorium, a 1,000-seater auditorium that would allow for effective stakeholder engagement. If you've participated in our stakeholder meetings, you'd see that a lot of times we're struggling with space. But with this now, people would be able to, participants would be able to sit well and would be able to accommodate as many people as possible based on the group of stakeholder engagement, particularly with the CSOs. For the political parties, yes, you have a fixed number, so we can work around that. Now that we have 19 parties, so it's workable. So imagine what would have happened when we had over 80 parties. So how would you and where would you sit the chairman and the secretary? So this would help address that issue. Of particular interest for me is the museum he talked about, because that would help voter education, institutional memory. We normally have schools coming on excursions, and they come and we're giving them narratives. But this time around, with a museum, they'll be able to see exactly. So you see the physical,
feel and
exactly.
touch.
So you see the physical history, the historical and the historical.
The trajectory, the progress that you've made over from.
Exactly. So
yes, for instance,
the physical and digital.
Yes, I've seen pictures. I've seen pictures and I've seen documents where you have former chairmen, their period in which, and some of the things that they did, the innovations that they brought. I think all of that is
the ballot boxes that we had then
and the transformations that have taken place.
Exactly.
But more one of the key things that the chairman said was that in the last 34 years, it's been the same process where it's the federal government that has been, helping INEC to even the structure where you are, and the one you came from 1997.
Yeah, they started in 1991 when they came from Lagos. That was in Area 10.
So it was
built by the FCDA. So this is not new. This is actually, he said it, he emphasized the fact that this is the 3rd time. But people don't go back into history. They just grab on.
So that leads me to my next question. One of the most recurring challenges that we have had, in Nigeria's electoral process is that many citizens don't fully understand the electoral process, whether it's registration, accreditation, collation, and transmission. How is INEC trying to simplify these things in a way that it can, be understood, and then it can increase trust in the electoral process?
Yeah, we appreciate the fact that we have various demographics of the electorate, and so we would have to deploy. We deploy both traditional and digital strategies to address and to reach as many citizens as possible. At the grassroots level, at the local government level, we know that there has to be a lot of sensitization, and that is why with the reactivation of NICVEP, that is the Interagency Advisory Committee on Voter Education and Publicity, that structure is there to assist us, particularly the structure of the NOA, for instance, and ours. And so we use those platforms to reach people at the grassroots level. We do a lot of engagement with CSOs, and then that is for those at the grassroots. For those in the urban areas, the social media is there, the digital platform is there for us to do our engagements real time.
What do you see as the biggest gaps, some of the current gaps in terms of voter education and that has persisted despite repeated election cycles? And I also want you to, look into the spikes in political misinformation, especially on social media. What measures is INEC taking to ensure that accurate, real-time, and real-time information, civic information, reaches voters before and during elections?
Yeah, starting with the gaps. I think the first that readily comes to mind would be funding. But sometimes it's not just the funding, it is when the fund is released. Because if you release it close to the election, then you've not given up, we wouldn't have sufficient time to diligently deploy the resources for our voter education activities. We have the support of development partners and CSOs, technical support, sometimes logistical support. But again, like I said, sometimes the resources or the support would come too close to the election, and so you see we're now there is now the preponderance of throwing money at issues. We do not have sufficient time to have thought out the strategy that would yield maximum effect for us. So funding is one. Two is, again, we find ourselves struggling to earn the trust because of this distrust, mistrust, I don't know what word to use. So we expend so much energy trying to repeatedly earn the trust of citizens. The times that we should have gone beyond where we are, we're finding ourselves going back again to try to earn their trust.
You know that election is a divisive enterprise. So whether
we are the receiving end, unfortunately.
Yes. So
and so that's why we just find ourselves going back, always trying to earn the trust of the citizens before we can get their buy-in and then have a fruitful engagement.
So how is technology helping you in this? And there is conversations around elections and AI and all of that. Is INEC, are you forward? I know you have a forward-looking commission in terms of innovation. How are you doing?
Incidentally, the commission approved an engagement with one of our development partners, DAI, and with the support of European Union. And they have invested so much on building the capacity of voter education and publicity staff. I think in the past 2 months, we started in March. There have been layers and phases of training to prepare them to monitor, to use digital tools, AI and digital tools to track media trends, to track behavioral outcomes. Yes, so they are monitoring to try to position them actually to track the news that concern elections and the commission, so that we can take proactive steps when such trends are brought to our negative or positive, are brought to our notice, and then we take appropriate action with regard to what next step to take to address whatever issue comes from that.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at effectiveness of your voter education initiatives and see whether there are indicators and data that points you rely on to access how much people understand what you're doing. But before we get to that, we'll go on a break now. Electoral Reform Half Hour continues after now. Glad to have you back. We're still speaking with Victoria Eta Messi, the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. So I was talking about how you measure effectiveness of, voter education initiatives? Are there indicators that you have? I also know that in the last, within the life of this commission, there has been so much innovations that has been introduced. How do you measure the effectiveness of this? For instance, political parties nominations is now done online, unlike in the past. How do you measure, and how does the commission feel the impact of some of these things that have come on?
With regard to measuring the impact of what we do, right?
Yes.
I think the easiest, the most tangible would be looking at the reaction and the response of the electorate with regard to voter registration and voter turnout. But the trick to that, we have seen, some researchers have seen or have alluded to that fact, that tying registration to voter turnout on election day do not run pari passu. Some people get registered for reasons best known to them. They could choose to come out, so you could have much more people, significant number of people turning up to register. But on election day, they don't turn up. They just want to have their
voters' cards.
Exactly. So if we're using the voters' cards or voter registration statistics to measure, it may not give us a true picture. So for us, it's actually seeing the actual voter turnout. And another major one would be the statistics with regard to voided votes. That now shows, that speaks to us, ideally, that maybe we're not speaking the language they understand effectively, and so we have not sufficiently done voter education if the numbers are huge. So that is one. So that is one aspect to it, and the other would be again deploying technology to track the trends and discussions and reactions online to see what are the positive and the negatives that is coming from the electorate and the citizenry, and then we know what next action to take based on the trends that we see on the digital space.
So I know you've not just have been in voter education, you've been in the training aspect of this and administration. People are talking about having election in one day, single day election. That conversation is everywhere.
Yeah.
So are there, gaps in the Electoral Act that you will personally advocate to be amended to strengthen or boost informed participation?
Personally, I have had discussion with one or two colleagues, and we flagged the issue that if you look at the Electoral Act Section 2, it talks about the functions of the commission. It says conducting voter and civic education. It puts voter before civic.
Yes.
Voter is a subset of civic education. So ideally it should be civic and voter education. And those experts in that field have often questioned why that arrangement was adopted, because you're now belittling, so to speak, civic education. And voting, remember, is...
You are talking about the law of first mention now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what is mentioned first, perhaps carry more...
Exactly, yes. That is the understanding, that you are amplifying the voter education to the detriment of civic education, whereas one is a subset of the other. And your voting is a civic duty. When voting is a civic duty, it is the civic education that conscientizes the electorate. And by the time you conscientize them, it's easier for you to sensitize them. So the voter education component of it talks about the sensitization, mobilization, whereas the civic education part of it talks about conscientization. So once you're successfully able to conscientize, then it makes voter education easier. So if we're able to have that arrangement and give more strength to civic education, then I think it would make voter education easier for us.
This question is not to you as director now, it's to you as somebody who has been in INEC, who has seen election administration.
Yeah.
This single day conversation, what do you think? And there won't be any attribution to your view is not INEC's view. It's just...
It has its pros and cons. Looking at our past trajectory, antecedents. It's going to put a lot of logistical burden. So we really need to step up. We would really need to step up on our planning and efficiency for us to get it right. It's doable. One good thing from that is that it would cut costs, because everything happens.
Will it really cut costs? Because I've been doing the maths, and each time I do the maths,
with regard to personnel, it would cost costs, because you're not paying personnel twice. When you are engaged.
What about ballot boxes?
Okay, that's why I said it has its pros and its cons.
Okay, so interagency collaboration.
Yes.
For you in voter education, even though Section 2 talks about INEC, being involved in civic, and that's
Voter
also
education, yeah.
something NOA should do.
Yeah.
Some of us in civil society can help you also do that. How much what more collaboration is possible to be able to achieve your mandate as a department?
I think the issue for us now is to try to have a more synthesized approach to it. The collaboration is there, the partners are there, but sometimes you see us working at cross purposes. For instance, let's take some development partners who have resources or development partner funding for voter education, but sometimes it's tied to a particular region, and so they tell you that this intervention or this intervention is meant for the Northeast. What now happens to the other regions?
Yes, okay.
And then you could have like 2-3 development partners channeling their resources towards one particular region, and so you see so much money in one region and you do not see the other regions being taken care of. So we still need to go back to the drawing table to ensure that all the flanks are covered, that the resources are well managed and put to use, so that at the end of the day we do not have gaps within the regions.
Thank you. So as we look to 2027 general elections, what concrete steps is INEC already taking in terms of voter education and public enlightenment? Are there lessons from 2023 that is shaping new strategies, especially to ensure early engagement, wider reach, and greater public confidence in the process? And then finally, what message will you give to Nigerians who feel that voter education makes no difference when they claim that outcome seems to be predetermined, or their votes don't appear to count?
Okay, let me start with the first question about what we're doing towards 2027. We've hit the ground running. Like I said, one of our development partners has invested heavily in trying to hone the capacity of voter education and publicity staff to better prepare them and position them for the task ahead with regard to providing well-coordinated voter education to the citizens, and to ensure that we maximize the number of people that we sensitize their interest to participate in the electoral process. So that is there. And then there is, again, a mentoring or mentorship program still on to ensure that these people are, the training is continuous to sustain their competencies, and this will be stepped down to the sub-national level. So that means that all our voter education staff, critical staff, would benefit from this training and competence building or capacity building that would help them and position them for the task ahead. With regard to a final word on voter education not counting, voter education is essential, is an essential component for progress in democratic progress. You cannot divorce voter education from democratic growth.
And we would need to continue to let the voters know that their vote counts.
Yes.
And many congratulations for the event of last Tuesday, which I, in my view, is just revolutionary, that INEC is going to have a better place to do their work.
Thank you.
Many congratulations to the Commission. This is where we draw the curtain on this episode of Electoral Reform Half Hour, and we wish to specially thank Victoria Eta Messi, the Director of Voter Education and Publicity, for your time and contributions on the program. It was a pleasure having you. I'd like to shake my guests. Thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, the program is brought to you by the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa with sponsorship from MacArthur Foundation. We are live every Saturday from 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. with a repeat broadcast at 2:30 p.m. on Sunday, same station. You can contact us on our social media handles showing on your TV screen. Thank you for watching. I am Ezenwawagu. Thank you so very much for coming. Thank you for